Chuck, I see you.
Pretty good, Laura.
Hi.
Hi. Can you see me okay?
I can. I hear you. I see you. That looks good.
Okay. And then let me just check this computer audio. I'm just going to play it from here. How does this sound?
For them, the world was kind of built inaccessible.
You hear that okay?
I can. It's a little muddy, but I think it's okay.
Okay. I'll turn it up just a little bit. So, okay. And let me just double check here. Going back to that, I'm going to close my settings, share screen. Oh, so you have to let me share my screen. It says host disabled attendee screen share.
So I'm going to spotlight your video and I can make you the host.
Maybe yeah, there must be a setting where you allow.
I think it is. I don't know if we can execute it on the fly. Let me see.
Okay.
Yeah, once we're in the meeting, I don't know if I can change that. So let's see. All right, I'm going to make you the host and see what happens.
Okay, now I'm going to share screen. Okay, you should see a premiere.
It looks, yep.
Okay.
It looks good.
All right, so I'm going to stop the share here.
Okay.
Go into
we'll just give it a couple minutes for people to log in. I did share the invite with other chapters. I think, at least in Arizona, we're getting down to the very end of school. Hi, Dan.
There's John Booth.
Hi, everybody.
There he is.
It's not me, it's the Zoom presence known as John Booth.
That's right. That's right.
I've been locked in this room since March 13th.
Oh, it feels like it. It feels like
oh, man.
Not far from the truth.
Yeah.
How's everybody?
Getting by, you know. I've been working at home since mid-March, going into my 8th week here, and I've kind of got it down now. So
yeah,
it's working out okay for me. Everybody's healthy. I'm lucky. So
in some ways, I'm working harder than ever, but I'm not able to. There's so much of that communication that happens being in the same building that just doesn't happen. So you have to write an email or call somebody or clarify or Zoom meeting.
Right, right.
But we're getting it done.
So I see we have Brian joining. Brian, are you a student?
He's muted. I think we'll see, but I think he's an advisor in Peoria if it's the Brian I'm expecting.
Oh, hi, Brian. Yeah, you're on mute, but I can see you. So.
Yes, an advisor.
Okay, great.
Welcome. I'm going to put in the chat here a couple of links that you could download if you want to follow along. Let's see. Well, I think I did it twice, so you're going to have to scroll. There's only 3 total that you need. It's a soundbite, a beauty shot, and some B-roll. But for some reason, when I pasted, you got it twice. So you don't need 6 items. Okay. And we'll get started in just a minute. We've got a couple more people coming. Just as a reminder, we are recording this so that students and advisors can watch along later. It will be on our YouTube page, and I'll post the link at the end so you can also copy that. But there's the first 2 in our series, one about shooting with your iPhone and one about reporting that are available on YouTube now. And then this one will be available later today. So we're going to dive in for that reason. And then as people join, they can participate. Again, the links are in the chat. There should be 3 things if you want to follow along that you'll need. And without further ado, let me introduce Chuck Emmert. Chuck is a member of our Board of Governors, as well as a professor at ASU's Cronkite School, and a very well decorated photographer in his own right, but also a friend to our board for many years. So thank you, Chuck, for doing this.
Well, you're welcome, and welcome everybody that's either watching this live or the recording here. And I want to talk a little bit today about video editing and some simple tips that you can do, tricks, to make your video, your B-roll a lot more effective. before I get into that, I just want to talk a little bit about the Emmy Awards and our chapter. So we are part of the Rocky Mountain Southwest Academy. Let me repeat that. We are part of the Rocky Mountain Southwest chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. So for awards, that's a really big deal. I mean, you know, for the film industry, you have the Oscars. The recording industry has the Grammys. You know, the Broadway Productions has the Tony Awards. And for anything that is video production related to television industry, we have the Emmys. So it's one of the big fours, and it's the top award that you can get for work that you do in this industry. And so we have a national organization that awards the Emmy Award for productions that have a national audience. So something like a network might do, or something of that nature. We have the sports awards, we have the news and documentary, we have the daytime Emmy Awards, things like that. And then we also have a group of 19 chapters spread all across the country, of which we are a part of, our Rocky Mountain chapter is a part of, that awards the Emmy Awards and the Student Production Awards for individuals that are within our region. So for us, our region is Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and a little piece of California over by El Centro. And the big deal about the Emmy Awards is the fact that it's peer judged. So what that means is when you submit an entry into the Emmy Awards in whatever category that you are submitting that entry, the people that judge that are people that actually do that type of work. So if you're submitting something for videography, for example, it's going to be videographers that are working in the field every single day and are doing the job and know what it takes to do that type of job, that are judging your work. It's not a board someplace, it's not a group of people, anything like that doesn't do the work. The Emmys is judged by people that are actually peers to you, that actually do the work like that. So that's a little bit about that. Then we also have you know, the Emmy Award for professionals, people that are getting paid for what they do. But we also have our Student Production Awards that follows this exact same process, but it's for students that are doing work and for class or for a project, something of that nature. And all the rules for those entries and the deadlines and everything, which is coming up, is on our website at rockymountainemmy.org. So if you go there, you can find all the details on that, and also contact information if you have any questions on how to submit or things of that nature. So that's what we have so far about our academy and our chapter. And I want to get into the presentation now. So we put up a few things that you can do to follow along with this as well. But I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to go to the Premiere Pro interface, the desktop right here that I have for Premiere Pro. And I want to start off with a soundbite that I have here in my timeline. So I have my Premiere Pro interface here, and I'm going to just minimize something over the edge here. But over here, you can see what I have is a part of an interview called a soundbite. It's just one small section of an interview with this woman right here. And I just want to kind of show you a couple things with this. So I'm going to play this over here. And
you know, we can go out and do whatever we want to do on a daily basis. But, you know,
okay, so now as a video editor, I'm looking at this and I'm going to look at ways that I can improve this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my audio is adjusted properly. And the way that I do that is I'm going to come over here on my timeline. This area here is highlighted in this blue square here. And I'm going to look down here, and I've got video up on the top, and down here I have audio. And so I'm going to just click, I'm going to go right in between the A1 and the A2 right here, and I'm just going to click and I'm going to drag that open a little bit bigger like that. So what I get here is more of a graphical look at my audio, and I'm making the timeline a little bit bigger here so you can see this. But you can see here that I've got now my video up here, I have my audio down here, and down here I have these peaks and valleys. That is what is called a waveform that shows me the audio. So we'll play it again, you can kind of see.
It's kind of built inaccessible, and it's really there in ours.
So this shows me the peaks and valleys of her soundbite right here, the audio level. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to make sure that I have consistent audio throughout my video production, and I'm going to set a level here. So an industry standard is over here on the right. I have a volume unit meter. I have a meter that shows me exactly where that audio is falling. And an industry standard is I really want my peaks of my audio to be between 12 and 15. Minus 12 and minus 15 is where I want it to be. So if I play this, you can really see that they're up higher like that. I'm going to turn the sound down a little bit so you can hear me better. But if I play it, you can see that the peaks are really up here around -6, -9. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the audio level to get it in industry standards between 12 and 15. And the easiest way to do that is, since I've expanded this audio track right here like that, I've got a line right here in the center, and I can take that line and in real time, I can drag it down a little bit like this. And I just moved it a little bit, but you can see now that my peaks are just right there. Some of them pop up a little bit above that, so I might bring it down just a teeny bit more like that. But now my audio is pretty consistent right there between 12 and 15. And the good thing about that is, number one, that's an industry standard, but also by doing that, I can maintain consistency throughout my audio in the entire package that I'm cutting that way. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do, is I'm going to adjust that line so that I get my audio right there between 12 and 15 like that. So, okay. Now, that being said, I'm going to listen to her soundbite, because there are some spots in here where she kind of says some ums and she kind of repeats herself, and I want to clean that audio up a little bit. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let it play here.
I kind of take for granted that, you know, we can go out and do whatever we want to do on a daily basis. But, you know, for them, the world was kind of built inaccessible.
So I'm going to stop right there. And she has a part right here in her audio where she kind of doubles up what she says right here.
Want to do on a daily basis. But, you know, for that.
So right in here, she has a but, you know, and then for them. So I can kind of shorten things up in here, and I can make that a little bit of a cleaner soundbite. And here's how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to find that spot right before she says, but you know. So
basis. But
okay, right about there. So I can drag my cursor back here, right in between there like that. And I'm just using the mouse, and I'm going to this little marker up here. I'm dragging it back in between there like that. And I can see the gap right there. That gives me a visual cue of where that gap is at. So I can do that. I can also use the arrows on my keyboard to move slowly like that. But there's a number of different ways, but I'm going to start right there with that. So I want to make a cut right there. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to come over here to my toolbar over here on the left-hand side. I'll move this out a little bit. You can kind of see this toolbar over here. And there's a little razor blade right here like that. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to bring it over here on my timeline, and I'm going to make a cut right there. And I'm going to do the audio to just like that. So I've made a cut there that way. Then I'm going to move down a little bit.
But, you know,
so right there she goes, you know, for them. So I'm going to cut out this other for. Right about there like that. I'm going to go into that spot, and I'm going to still have my razor blade on. I'm going to make another edit like that. Okay, so I basically isolated that part in the middle there where she kind of doubles up her speech like that. So now I'm going to go back to my pointer right here, my selection tool. I'm going to grab that, and I'm just going to take that part right there, select it, and I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard like that, and it cuts that part out. Okay, so I just basically use my razor blade tool to make a cut right there, and then I've gone back, selected it like this. I was there, I selected it, just drawn a square around it. I hit delete on my keyboard, and it's gone like that. All right. So now I've cut that part out, but I've got this gap in between there. So I can do a number of things to bridge that gap. One is I can come in here, and I'm going to hold my cursor in here. I'm going to hold down the control key on my keyboard, or right click, and I'm going to select ripple delete, and it brings the whole thing right back together like that. All right, so now I've got this kind of situation.
Do whatever you want to do on a daily basis. For them, the world was kind of built in a...
Okay, so now I've cut out probably 2 seconds or so. I've shortened up my piece, and I've made the sound, it's consistent, it's true. I haven't really altered her meaning at all. but I've shortened things up and made it better that way. But I do have a problem that I've created by doing that. So what you'll see here is the jump in her video. So it plays along here.
Do on a daily basis. For that.
So then, you know, right there, what happens is her face shifts because we've cut out time there like that. So I have to make an adjustment for that, where that doesn't look like it has that kind of a clip, a cut there like that. So a simple way to do that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to scale this shot in a little bit so it doesn't look like such a jump. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that shot right there. I'm going to go right to the very beginning of that clip right there, right about there where she has just starting that talk, and I'll make my timeline a little bit bigger so you can see. So right there, I'm going right to the very beginning of that clip right there. I clicked on it to select it. And now over here in the upper left-hand corner of my screen, I have my controls up here. So here's my main project window, but I'm going to go to a tab called Effect Controls. And it's right next to my project. If it's not there on yours, I can come over here to the window menu and I can choose Effect Controls and check it, and it will pop up there like that. So in Effect Controls, this is a very powerful tool that we can use to really adjust our video. Now, starting here, what I'm going to do is I am going to use my position and scale functions here, right here, to change the framing on her shot. So like I said, selected her shot. It's important. I selected it. And then I can go over to the scale, and where it says 100 and it's in blue lettering, I can click on that 100 and hold down my mouse, and then I can drag back and forth, and I can change the scale of the shot. So let's scale in a bit like that. And then maybe over here, I might just change, you know, the framing slightly, and I'm going to scooch her over a little bit like that. So all I'm doing with these controls over here is I'm hovering my mouse over it, I'm clicking and holding, and then I'm able to move and select what I want like that. So in this case, I've kind of moved and selected, and I've clicked in. So now I have a shot that goes like this.
For them,
let me go back a little bit further.
Basis. For them,
so now by that kind of an edit right there,
want to do on a daily basis. For them,
just making that change in framing helps that shot quite a bit right there. That's going to make that shot a lot more easier on the eyes to see in order to create a simpler edit like that in that situation. So that's one tool that you can use right there that will help your video out a lot in terms of cutting down sound bites and making them shorter and more understandable. So I'm going to move on to some other techniques from here, but just before I do, I just want to make sure and see if there's any questions about that or something that wasn't clear in what I did there that we can re-explain. Okay. So it looks like we're all pretty good on that right there. So now moving right along, I want to do another technique with this right here. So I'm going to go back to my original soundbite in this picture. I'm just going to, I'm going to hit Command Z on my keyboard, and I'm going to undo everything that I did. So I'm just hitting Command Z. It's a great tool. If you mess something up on your Premiere, you can hit Command Z and it undoes, it undid. I'm not sure what the correct English there. It undoes whatever you just did. All right. So Command Z is a great tool to go backwards with what you're doing. So we're just going to start here with the same soundbite with her. And I want to show you one other trick that you can do that kind of adds impact on your sound bites like that. So as we see it, as we kind of scrub through this soundbite, we can see the camera's on one steady shot like that. It hasn't moved, hasn't zoomed, nothing. It's just perfectly steady that way. So I'm going to add a little zoom to this shot to get a little bit more impact to the shot. So again, I'm going to go back to the very beginning of my soundbite, and I'm going to make sure that that clip, I click on it to make sure it's selected that way. And then I'm back up here on my effect control window. So this time I'm going to use some devices called keyframes that can really make a big impact in your video. And the neat thing about them is they're adjustable. So what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to go at the very beginning of my soundbite like this, and up in here in my position and scale, just to the left of the words position and scale, there's this little symbol here It kind of looks like a little miniature stopwatch or something. I'm not sure what it's called, but I'm going to select that on both position and scale. And if I look over here in my window, I've got these little triangles that show up, these little keyframes they're called, that show up right there. That's basically a marker. It's a start point for me, like that. So I've got that keyframe right there, and I'm going to move down maybe just a little bit right here or so, and I'm going to establish another keyframe right there. So these here, I've set my first ones over here, and these little symbols right here where it says add or remove keyframe, I'm going to set another one right there. So now I've got two different sets of keyframes on there, and nothing's changed. I haven't moved anything, but now I'm going to go a little bit further into the soundbite, maybe right about here or so, and I want it to zoom in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my scale function over here. I'm hovering over it, I'm clicking the mouse, and I'm moving in a little bit so it zooms in about that far. Now you'll notice as soon as I did that, as soon as I moved that, it created a brand new keyframe right here. It added one because it's got a difference. Before it was at 100, now we're at 135. Same thing over here. I'm going to add a little bit more headroom on her, and I'm going to move it just a little bit that way. And I've changed these values now, so there adds another keyframe. So the cool thing is now that the Premiere will gently move between here and my start by adding those keyframes. So here's what I can do. Here's where it starts. And then right about now, we start that zoom is, and you can see us moving up here. You can see the numbers changing over here. It's putting in a nice little zoom on my soundbite like that. So the great thing about that is when there's a particular point in a soundbite that has maybe reveals something or has more emphasis, it has something important in there, I can change the video on my shot with a zoom like that in order to create a better soundbite like that, get more impact. I don't have to worry about doing it in my camera in the field where I might mess it up or maybe it's not the right time. This point right here, I can control it exactly. So, and what I mean by that control, I'm going to expand this out a little bit. So let's just say that, you know, this zoom is kind of happening maybe a little fast, you know, it's going in like that. It might be to some taste a little bit fast. So I might want to adjust that. So I can just simply take my keyframe over here. I can move it down a little bit. So, and both of these down like that. So now it's going to take longer for that zoom to happen. So you can see what happens here as I play it here. The zoom really takes a lot longer to happen, and it's gentler, and it's just got a better feel to it. So you can adjust these keyframes, you can add them, remove them, make adjustments on the fly with them, and it's really a good technique right there for something of that nature, having that kind of thing there with keyframes. So those are a couple of different tips, audio and then also keyframe wise, that you can do to make some additions to your sound bites like that. Okay, so I'm going to go on to something different here, but are there any questions from any students or anybody that's on the line here that have any questions about those techniques right there? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on here. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I want to show you a way that you can create a sequence using one shot that you've been in the field shooting. How you can create a sequence of shots of it. So I've got a shot right here, this shot right here that has these guys. I'm going to expand this a little bit in here so you can see it better. But this is a simple shot. The camera's been locked down on the tripod, and you see these guys coming over, and they're sitting down, and they're going to have something to drink here. They're social distancing properly, and everything's good with this shot right here. But I'm going to take this shot, and I'm going to move it down to my timeline. So I'm just going to simply drag it down here like that and move it down. So when it comes into my timeline right here, I want to show you something that's kind of interesting with this shot that you don't always see. So moving back right to the very beginning of this shot, I'm going to adjust my side over here. You can see that this shot, when it was filmed in the field, it's this size. When I put it on my timeline, for some reason, it's zoomed in like that. It's cropped in like that. And this is a common problem with video production where something in the field is shot in a certain format, and then when it comes into your timeline, it doesn't fit properly. So in this case, this was shot in the field with 4K. So it was shot in the 4K format. I'm putting it in a normal HD 1080 timeline here, and that's why it looks zoomed in like that. So I can fix that really easily. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to select my shot, come back up here to my effect controls, and I'm going to scale that shot back out to where it should be. So I can scale it back here, and I know that it should be a 50, so I'm just going to click in here, type in 50, and I've got them to match up like that. So this is a good tool to have, because if you're working with still photos, maybe video that you've got from somebody else that you're using in a project, sometimes they don't match up. I mean, there's a ton of different video formats, and a lot of times they just don't match up. So this is a way, using effect controls, that you can fix that. Okay, so now we've got this in the timeline. We've got it in the right spot like that. I've got my 100%, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can really see this much better like that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the beginning here. I'm dragging back with my mouse to the beginning of this timeline. I'm going to let it play a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much about the audio right now, but oops, hang on a second. Let me do one thing. I've got to expand this out. Do the whole clip here. For some reason, I only brought down part of it. But we've got, okay, there we've got the whole clip now like that. Okay, make it bigger. And so now I've got this long shot like here, and you know, it's a decent enough shot, but it's not very impactful in terms of editing. So what I'm going to do, let me go back here. I'm kind of losing control of my timeline. Okay, there we go. So now we got the guys coming in like this, and say right about here, you know, as they start to sit down, I want to have an edit right here where maybe I go in a little bit tighter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my friend over here, the blade tool, right here. I'm going to take that razor tool, and I'm going to make an edit right there. I'm going to make a cut right there. Go back to my pointer like that. So now I made a cut, but both sides are the same. So this side over here now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select it. I'm going to come back up over here to my effect controls, and we've already gone through position and scale, but I'm going to scale this in a little bit tighter now. Maybe I'll go in about that tight, and I'm going to adjust it, you know, get a little bit less headroom, and then I'm going to move over here so it's right in the center. So now what happens is, because I've used my blade tool to split the clips, this first part of the clip stays the same, and then the second part has this zoom in like that. So let's see how the cut looks. I'm going to go back here to the beginning, play, and then we've got a cut where the guys are sitting down here like that. A nice clean edit, and it matches perfectly with your match frame. So there's no lag in the cut. Because it's all one continuous shot, it matches perfectly. So I've been able to kind of cut a shot in like that. Okay, so now I come in, I got my cut here, and now I notice this guy over here, he's kind of got an expression. He's laughing about something right here. So I want to go in a little bit tighter on him. So I'm going to pick a spot right about, maybe right about here where he starts to do that laugh, right about there like that. Come back to my blade tool. Shortcut on your keyboard is just hit C for cut. I'm going to use my C, and I'm going to come back here, make that cut right here. And I want to go back to my pointer. I can hit V on my keyboard, or I can hit this over here. I'm just going to hit V. I really like keyboard shortcuts. And now I want to go in here, and I want to zoom in on him. So I'm going to make sure that I select the right clip. I'm on that clip over there. And I'm going to go back in my scale. I'm going to scale it in. I'm going to move this up, move this over a little bit like that, and maybe scale in a little bit further, up and over. So now I've really kind of isolated that guy right there. So now my cut looks like this. Start here, goes in, and then cuts to him. He's laughing, and now he's starting to sit down. So now I'm going to make sure that I want to go back to my wide shot or a different shot here, because he's about ready to go out of frame. So we cut into the guy. He's laughing about something. He's getting ready to sit down, and he just, maybe right before he starts to sit down, right about there, I'm going to go back to my razor tool. I'm going to make a cut again right there, and go back to my pointer, get this shot, and I'm going to take that, and I'm going to zoom back out to where it should be, right about there. Move things over like that. Oh, you see that, Laura? You have 10 minutes. So anyway, we'll keep going here. So now I zoom back out to this shot right here, but you know what, what I'm gonna do here is maybe I'm gonna have a reaction shot of the other guy kind of laughing about what he's saying. So maybe I'll make this cut right about here, go back to my pointer, and over here, I am going to zoom into him. So I'm gonna select that shot. I'm gonna scale in, wait, what's wrong here? Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna select that shot. I'm going to scale into that guy, get my right framing here. It's all a matter of manipulating these controls over here like that. So now I've got sort of a reaction shot. So it's cutting like this. Starts with the wide shot. Wait a minute. Guys are coming in. There's a medium shot, close up of that guy. And then now we're going to go back out to our wide shot. And I don't want it quite that wide, so I can scale in just a little bit here, get rid of some of that headroom up top like that. Maybe move it over so they're more in the center. And now I've got one shot, and let it play. I've got a nice, hang on a second, let it play, here it goes. Wide shot, medium shot, close up, reaction shot, close up, and back to the medium shot like that. So in essence, I've got one shot that I've been able to make a completely perfect cut sequence with that shot like that. So that's a good technique with your B-roll to maximize the B-roll that you have. I mean, you may have shots and you use them once or twice, but with scaling and cutting like that, you can create sequences with your B-roll that you never would have thought of before, or it makes it look like you have multiple cameras out there. And it's really an effective technique, you know. And for this technique, what I recommend is shoot in 4K. Shoot in 4K and then edit everything in a 1080 timeline, because 4K really gives you that ability to scale in without a lot of loss of picture quality that way. So it takes up more space on your camera, on your SD card in your camera, but it's really worth it in order to have better quality video. And then I put it in this 1080 timeline, which is pretty good. It's going to look great on any mobile device, on any, you know, on television, things like that. It's going to look really good. You know, the exception being if you had it up on a big screen like a arena or something like that, it might look not so good. You want to use a 4K timeline, but for everything, 99% of what we do, it's going to really look good that way and give you a lot of ability that way. So Laura, I see that on our timer here, we've got like 6 minutes left on this meeting. Do we need to wrap up in 6 minutes, or do we have an extension? How does that work?
We should finish in 6 minutes if possible, but I can send out a new link in the chat if you think you need more time.
Okay, great. That sounds good like that. Okay, so let me show you one other thing that you can do here to make a nice background for your zooms and things like that. So if you notice, I've got all these Emmys in the background like this for me, but I can also create kind of a neat zoom background that is something a little bit different. So I'm going to go to this shot right here. That's an old historic photo of downtown Phoenix, and I'm going to make a zoom background out of this. So I've got a steady clip here, and there's some movement to it like that, but I'm just going to take this one spot right here and pick that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to my effects over here, and I'm going to type in blur. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, and I get these different effects down here. This one called Gaussian Blur is a really good one. I'm going to just click that and drag it onto my shot over here. And then once I've got it on there, I'm going to go back to my effect controls, and I can come over here, and on my Gaussian Blur, I can add some blur to that shot. So I'm going to kind of blur it a little bit like that. So it's not so sharp, you know. With a background, I want to be in focus, but I want my background to be a little bit out of focus. It helps me stand out a little bit more, and it'll help you stand out too. So I can adjust the blurriness here. So all I did was I went to my effects, I typed in blur, Gaussian blur, I dragged it down on my shot, I go to my effect controls, and then I find it over here, and I can control the blurriness that I want. So I'm gonna go right about there like that, okay? Now the next thing I wanna do is, it's kind of a bright shot, so I'm gonna come over here to opacity, and I'm going to bring that opacity down just a little bit, maybe down to about 90 or so, make it a little bit darker that way. And so then I've got that way. So now I've got this nice still frame. So the thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here to my camera on my program monitor over here. I can export a frame. I'm going to take that. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to allow me to export frames. So I'm going to name it first. I'm going to call it old photo background, like that. And I'm going to make sure I can save it into the right spot. So I've got it going right in my folder. I'm working on keyframe tools. I can choose wherever I want it to go. And I'm going to choose it and put it right in there. And I say, OK. And it goes out that quick. Now I'm going to go back over to my Zoom controls here. And let's see here. I got to stop the share. OK. Now I'm going to go back to my Zoom controls. And under share screen over here, I can, let's see, I got to find my way. Oh, OK. So here's how you do it. You go over here. Let me go back to that. If everybody see this okay, they can see the screen I'm on and what I'm showing here, okay? So I'm gonna over here to this little chevron next to stop video, and I'm gonna choose my virtual background. So I click that, and then I get a whole choice in here of different things, and I'm gonna go browse out over here. I'm gonna take this little plus sign over here, and I'm gonna go add an image. And then I'm just going to go back out, and I did this before, so everything's showing up, but I'm going to choose my hard drive, choose the right folder I'm in, and I'm going to find that old photo background right here. I'm going to choose that and open it. And now I have the old Phoenix photo behind me like that. So the nice thing about doing it this way is that you put a little bit of a soft focus on your background so you stand out. And then by bringing down the opacity, it makes it a little bit darker. And that's all the better for making a person stand out on their background. So the cool thing about this technique is that you can choose different backgrounds for whatever Zoom meeting you're going to be in. Maybe it's one for school. You want to use your school logo. Maybe it's your professional organization. You know, I chose the Emmys for the first part of this, but I can, go through, and I've made quite a few of them like this. Here's one that I made for when I teach at ASU. Where's that one at? It's in here. But it's got the Cronkite campus someplace on here that I use for that. So, I can use different things of that nature. Oh, here it is right here. So you can see here's two different ones. Here's the one that's really bright like that, and it's all in focus. Here's the one that I did where I added the effects. I made it a little bit darker. I made it a little bit out of focus. So you can see the difference there in how the background appears that way with that. So anyway, we're down to less than a minute. Any questions before we wrap up here?
We will post this video, so if you want to share it with students that you work with, it'll be at the YouTube channel for Rocky Mountain Emmys this afternoon. And I hope that it's helpful, but I'm really grateful to you, Chuck. Thank you for taking time to share this. You're welcome. And like Laura says, we'll have this on our website, but if you want to enter in the Emmy Awards or the Student Production Awards, the deadline's coming up. Go to rockymountainemmy.org. And all of the rules and all of the forms are there to do that, plus contacts for Laura or anybody else on our board that can help you through that process. Thanks very much, Chuck. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Thanks, Chuck. Well done. Well done.
All right. Good seeing everybody. Stay safe and healthy. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.